In this video, I want to talk a little bit about how can we create our own custom buttons and for the more of a script storing outside our actual Houdini session. So it's kind of a expensive topic, but let's start with the actually why I wanted to make this video. So I was just wrangling, and sometimes you just create some of these parameters. Actually you maybe mistype them. So let's say I add e, pressed again, create a spare parameter. You can see I have now two parameters, and let's say this one is right and this one wrong. Usually what you have to do is go here and select them, apply, fix it like that, and create it again. So that's kind of annoying. So what I did is actually just created a button. This is basically going to delete the last parameter of our wrangle node, current wrangle node. So that's very handy. So you don't have to do it every time like that. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration for this video, that I just wanted to talk a little bit about how can we store our scripts outside the Houdini and kind of more of workflow things in Houdini. Once you start to familiarize with the program, it's very good to know what is. So let's start with the buttons. So first of all these buttons are just a Python script that runs off the file on our specified path. So first of all, we have to give a actually path for these buttons to work with. So inside this interface, you can take a look at, you can see it's basically a spare parameter. This button is a spare parameter, so we actually cannot go inside our type properties like here. So you can see this path is saying where the the node is located. So this is basically a default HDI node, which is basically by default while when install Houdini, and we can't really do anything inside here. So you can see it's going to basically throw up an error that we don't have any permission for this file. So for us to do anything, we could like just go and create a HDA. But for this wrangle node, what we can do is actually just create a spare parameter. So think about this type properties as a global reference for this node. So this is basically all of the references that are based off this network. But our spare parameters are basically our local reference. So basically specific for this copy of it. So if you create another one, so this is going to have another spare parameter. So think about it as a local ones. What's cool about this also this, we can actually modify this local one for our default node and actually save it as a permanent default. So for me, when I create a wrangle node, you can see my clear is automatically added because I saved it as a permanent default. And my edit parameters, you can see it is with the, you see it's also not grayed out, so I can just delete it, apply it, and now it's gone. So you can just in and out with it. So, but if you create another one, it's still there. So that's kind of a main difference between the edit parameter interface and the type properties. So type properties, think about more for the HVAs when we create them. Then we have a full power for all of these. So, but when we work with the default Houdini nodes, it's spare parameters. For us to reference any kind of a script inside Houdini, we actually need a path for it. So first of all, we have to look at the environment variables inside Houdini. So go to the help and go about Houdini. Go to the bottom of it, and you can see all of these environments are basically environment variables that we can reference inside Houdini. And what we want to do is actually look for the very specific path, which is Python path. So let's go to here, and so there's a P and there's a Python path. So this is basically my path for the, so this is the special path. If you go to the help actually to the Python script location modules on disk, you can see that it's actually reference that Houdini is automatically going to look for the Python modules, which basically Python files, at Python path environment variable, and also for the sys.path list in Python. So since I have set up this Python environment variable, it's going to, once I started to import any of these Python modules, it's going to look for it in this folder also. So this is exactly what we want if we want to store our own modules and reference them inside any of these nodes or anywhere in Houdini. So because you don't really want to go ahead and, because there's actually another option for us to Houdini install path and also Python X basically library list. There's a like default Houdini, default Python libraries and all of that, and you just really want to store it since once you're going to upgrade to the next Houdini, it's all going to be wiped away. So you just want to basically reference your own paths. So once it's time for the update, it's going to be so easy for you to just copy back your file that references the other locations and all of that. So what we want to do is use this Python path environment variables, and there's also another one is sys.path. So let's actually, well, actually let's just take a look at sys.path list in Python. So we have to do is import sys module and sys.path. Basically, it gives all of the path that Houdini, that Python is also looking for places. Well, there's a bunch of default stuff in here, so it's not really very viable. Although I have appended some of these my current project locations and all of that. So this is basically the kind of like a local scripts for this project. Well, if there is any, so very specific scripts. This is not like a global script location. Also, this is just I just appended like that. So you can add through this using just the append, but for us actually we have to use like my method in here, basically add the Python path environment variable, which is actually right now done through the packages. So if you go to your Houdini user folder, which is basically in a document, Houdini profile, there's going to be a packages folder. Inside these packages, there's basically all of the tools that use packages going to put its own JSON file. So this is my JSON file, which is very simple, which is basically just creates an env of the Python path, and this is my other one. But look at this only Python path. So I'm just going to link actually the very awesome article for this doing away with the Houdini env, which is basically these packages are the new way we can get our environment variable set up once we start Houdini and all of that great stuff. So just read it away, or I mean, for the most basic one, you just want to create your env and just create a Python path environment variable and just copy a path of it like that. So you can see that I have basically my Python path is actually referencing another environment variable which I created above it like that. This is my global, and this global is also referenced inside my script in my Python path like that. So once I go inside this show help, you can see that's going to I have also my other path. So if I go to the M, so where is it? So it should be somewhere. Oh, there is global. You can see it's global, and then I just add scripts to it. So and in folder it looks something like this. So take a look at the let me as you can see basically Houdini global, which is my global path. My global path and scripts is where my Python scripts holds out. So forget about this. I can actually reference now this my global environment variable. Let me copy it. And let's say I want to import. So let's say I have some of these files where maybe I store my geometry. So I just put down a file node. What I can actually do is put down a $sign and paste inside global. Well, there's no geometry right now, but if you let's say write inside here and make sure you have a $sign since it's an environment variable like that, you can see this is my basically fast way I can reference this folder inside Houdini, and I can let's say I select my geometry like that. Now that we have set up our environment, we can actually reference these scripts inside our Houdini. So let's go to the actual part interface. Let's take a look at what I actually wrote inside this clear. So this is basically a callback script. So basically this is going to happen when we press on it. So there's like callback scripts also like for something like let's put in a string. Yeah, let's put in a string, applied. You see there's also a callback script for it, so you might think, but what's the point? Basically, this is what happens when you press like enter. So let's try it out. So now nothing happened, but inside our label, let's actually print out something. Let's print out some sort of a text like that. Let's apply it. So now that I press enter, you can see it's basically Python default. Basically, it's a print. It's basically going to print it out. You can see once I press enter inside my parameter, it's going to do it like that. So that's what basically a callback script is. It's basically going to do something once we actually modify it. And for the button, it's a little more straightforward because, well, it's a button. You press on it and it does something. So, but what we actually wrote inside it, so you can see it's what we have done it. Now that we have set up our environment, Houdini knows where to look for our scripts. So let's go to our help file. So in here you can see it basically says that now all we have to do is import it. So there's a long way we can import it. So import like we did with the sys dot import sys, and then we can reference it. But since there's really not much place for us to do anything of that inside here, it's basically done just for the callback script. We do not actually have to need to write anything inside this as for the what it's going to do, like with the print. So this script is much too big for us to cram it inside in here. So that's why what we'll do is just reference it. So you can see it's in the help, it says there's an easy way for us to Python built-in import function that runs a model and immediately access to any of the functions of it. So let's take a look how it looks. It's import with underscores both sides, and then in a brackets is basically a Python file that we want to import, and then the function. So let's take a look how it looks. Inside my script folder, its setup is very simple. So when we reference this one, we are referencing my Wrangle Python file. So let's go to my scripts location, and you see it's a Python file. Let's open it up, and this is basically what this is. We import who, and then we create our own function, which is delete last parameter. Then it's a bunch of Python code, and that's it. And it's basically gonna call it once we press this button, and that's it. Few more things, maybe actually two. So I wanted to talk about keyboard arguments, which basically data, which is basically a dictionary that we can pass upon when we press any of these buttons inside our Wrangle, or even any of these buttons inside here. So when we create our own tools, we can press one button and it's actually going to pass information to the Python script function or Python whatever Python function that we can actually use it inside our Python and manipulate. So it's kind of gives a little bit of a context of where we wrote it, and it's actually going to give us a context to this node. What I have done inside, created a new button, and all I did in the callback script place, I have printed out the kwarg dictionary. So kwargs are keyword arguments, and let's apply it and let's press on it. So you can see in Python shell, basically think about it. If we write our scripts, this information for us is now accessible. So we can see we have a reference to our node, our parameter, for our script parameter words and all of that. So very valuable information when we are scripting actually inside Python. So this is basically a way for us to get information. So this is very handy. And one last thing I wanted to show is actually creating a menus. And in this one we can use actually the kwargs that we gonna give it as a menu item. So let's take a look at it. So you can create a button or a menu, and you you can turn this button into the menu. So go inside the menu and use menu, and then press on. So basically we can create it by hand like that, but I mean it's not really, I guess you can use applied. You see now we have these. So there's a token and label. So label is what we read as a human, and actually the value of it is basically kind of hidden. So I mean we can use it as the same as this one. It's going to be the same value, so like that. So but I mean this is not really the way to do it. So the way to do it is actually use a menu script. So what I have done here is basically copied our button script inside our new parameter. Let's go to the menu, and I have created a new function. In this function, we are taking our keyword arguments and creating a list out of it. So this menu wants basically a list of items. Basically, I'm not going to really go into it, but it's very simple, and we are basically going to get our kwargs and feed and basically disassemble it as a list and feed it back inside Houdini. So let's take a look at it. So let's let's minimize it. Let's apply it, our script. Let's press on it. You see that first of all we have 4 values, so you can see it's noticeably that this kwarg dictionary is actually different size than our callback script. So for our button, it was actually bigger. So it is kind of a dynamic what information it's actually going to give. So these items are going to get 4 values, but button there was a lot more items that is going to give to our Python. So you just have to look for what it actually gives and you can work with it. So you can see it basically gives all of the values for it. So basically the key is hidden and actually the value is inside here. So that's that. So obviously we could, I mean, let's really do it the other way. So let's feed it inside value and then the key. So this is basically going to invert our values, and we will see what kind of keys it actually feeds inside our Python script. So now I'm just going to reload our script, because it's not going to automatically update. So we do have to reload it. So, but that's still not the point of the video. Let's take a look at it again. You see now we are seeing all the four key values that it's actually going to give to the Python to work with. So we can see it's node, parameter, and script, multiparam index, and multiparam nesting. And we can all work with all of these items inside our Python. And now that we have our dynamic menu set up, what we can do is actually create a callback script, and let's print out actually the value of our parameter that we just selected. So let's use it, let's print it out. Let's print. So this is the kwarg that are given by the callback script. So these are the values, but you can see that there's more values than our menu. So, but we do know that there's a script value, key value, which is going to basically return the value of this script. So let's print it out. Let's print out the kwargs. And for us to access the specific information, we have to use the kwargs, then the square brackets, and the parameter name. So basically it's a key, and it's a script value. So let me just copy it, paste inside, apply it. Let's change it. Let's actually give me some room. You can see now, you can see it basically prints out the value of our parameter node and all of that. So this menu is dynamic, and the printing of this is also dynamic. So that's incredibly powerful. We can do it many ways and all of that. So I think that's it what I wanted to show for this tutorial. Now let's just delete this. And actually, it doesn't even matter since it's a parameter interface. So that's it for this video. I think it's pretty cool, and I hope you found something new and useful. And maybe if you want more videos about scripting and all of that, and maybe more of a not so obvious things about Houdini. So that's it for this video, and thank you for watching, and take care.